Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our program spotlights people in our community who are involved in activities designed to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host. The commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guest today is Dianne Cruz, who's a member of the board of directors of the Greater Annapolis Interfaith Network, which also goes by the acronym GAIN. Dianne also has served many years as secretary of GAIN. Dianne, welcome to Annapolis Mosaics.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, let's share with our viewers what GAIN is and what's its mission or purpose.
GAIN, as you say, the Greater Annapolis Interfaith Network, was formerly Churches Without Boundaries. Some people still refer to us as Churches Without Boundaries. And it currently is a coalition of 18 faith communities who have come together to collaborate and to promote dialogue and advocacy for some of the injustices and inequities that we see in our community. We try to work together to benefit all.
Going back and looking a little bit of the history, you mentioned that the organization with Churches Without Boundaries.
Right.
What actually was the driving force for this organization to get started in the first place? There's lots of interfaith groups, but why did GAIN get started?
I wasn't one of the founders. And I've looked back in our archives, which aren't really organized very well, to try to find out exactly when it started. It must have been at least 12 years ago. And the Social Action and Peace and Justice Committees of St. Mary's, St. Martin's, and Asbury United Methodist Church got together thinking that there's strength in numbers, and they recognized that there were some issues at that time in the community that if they put their heads together, perhaps they could make a difference. The issues at that time, as I recall them talking about it, I've been involved about 9 years. The issues at that time were homeless, affordable housing, education, inequities in education. The substance abuse problem was terrible, and there was very little drug treatment and prevention. Those kinds of issues were the issues that they were most concerned at that time. And there's issues, unfortunately, that we still deal with, but those were the ones that sort of got the organization going.
And in fact, those are the issues I think that are still the ones that are at the forefront in terms of what GAIN actually does, in terms of the issues that it focuses on the most. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I would like to, though, before we go into the issue areas, to talk a little bit about who participates, who are part of it. You just told our viewers as to the number of faith-based groups and organizations and the like that are involved with GAIN. Let's give them a broader perspective. This isn't just a Christian-based organization, is it? When you say faith, you say interfaith, you mean interfaith. Talk a little bit about that in terms of the different religious organizations that are part of your coalition. Obviously, talking about those that are Christian-based, but also give sense of in terms of the breadth of organizations that participate.
Absolutely. We have various denominations of the Christian faith, and Roman Catholic, Episcopal, United Church of Christ, Methodist, but we also have the Anne Arundel County Muslim Society and the Islamic Society of Annapolis, they're members. We have both synagogues in Annapolis, Knesset congregation, as well as Kol Shalom. Including with that, we have the Unitarian Universalist congregation, we have the Baha'is, and we have the Annapolis Friends meeting. They are members of ours. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. And currently, the Buddhists have been coming. There's a small Buddhist community in Annapolis, and they've been coming to our meetings and considering joining us.
Well, I would consider that to be very broad-based. I
It's
can't
very
think of I can't
broad-based.
think of any major religious group that operates within certainly this area that isn't part of the GAIN network. So I think you're definitely comprehensive.
There are others that we are constantly working on, but that's the primary core group.
Yeah. I was thinking mainly in terms of it being truly an interfaith, interdenominational
Definitely.
organization, and I think
It's more than an ecumenical group. It is an interfaith group.
yes, good. That's a very important
That's
distinction.
an important distinction.
Very important distinction to make.
There are a number of ecumenical groups, but there aren't very many interfaith groups.
Okay, let's now talk about the issues that you focus on. As you mentioned, GAIN's focus has been one of concentrating on the social inequities that exist within the community, and you mentioned several that historically the group has worked with, but also that you continue to work on because these problems have not been resolved. I mean, they're ongoing. They existed before Churches Without Boundaries was created. They continue to perplex and to challenge us in our society. Let's look at them individually. Let's start with affordable housing. How does that issue shape up right now? And obviously, for this community, that's an important one.
Yes, it's still an important one. GAIN, as we said before, primary mission is to bring awareness and information. We were not really intending to be an activity group. There's plenty of people that are active doing things, let's say working on the housing issue, for example. And so what we have done in the last year is work very closely with Habitat for Humanity, promoting their projects, their youth project, the project on Clay Street. We have an information network. We've been putting a lot of their notices out across our network in hopes of bringing some of the faith communities into the Habitat for Humanity projects. And so hopefully we have accomplished that. In the past we have, and I think one of the goals for the coming year is to work more with empowering people to get involved with the policy setting and legislation that will revolve around housing. We realize we still need affordable housing in Annapolis, and there are a lot of people who don't have housing that they can afford. So we're going to try to work on that core issue of empowering people to go to the right places, help set the policies. That's one of our goals for this year that we've been throwing around, how we can make a difference in that area.
Yeah, I know that a number of local governments have focused on giving incentives to developers, and even, in fact, even legislative requirements to developers that they set aside a certain number of units within their developments for moderate income individuals.
Yes.
Have programs like that been helpful?
Actually, when I got involved about, I think, 8 years ago, that was the big thing we were working on. And our organization worked along with others in testifying before the city council, as you will recall, to get the 10% of new housing for workforce affordable housing. We worked very hard on that. That was one of our major issues.
Let's move on to a second issue, and that you mentioned. That's drug abuse prevention and treatment. Obviously, an issue of tremendous concern in the community, and an ongoing problem. What has GAIN been doing in that area?
Well, we organized a town meeting about drug prevention and treatment, and it was probably one of the largest attended meetings. We usually meet at St. John Newman Roman Catholic Church on Bestgate Road in their meeting space, and Larry Griffith was there. We had people from the hospital. We had a whole panel of experts dealing with the issue. We had young people, which was wonderful. Some of the young people who came talked about programs they were in and how helpful they were. We had some young mothers who had had problems with the addiction issue, and they spoke about their experiences. It was an excellent town meeting.
Okay. A third issue is one which I think has probably greatest amount of, I think, attention in our community, and that's education. What have you accomplished in that? What have you been doing in that area?
I have to admit, within the last year, we haven't done much with education. But in the past, we have had representatives of GAIN who would go to board meetings to speak or to show up at other community meetings when the education issue was being addressed. We have representatives of GAIN who serve on some of the community associations and organizations dealing with various issues. We will have community organizers actually call and ask for a representative because they want an interfaith representative on some of their committees. We've done that with Community Action a couple of times, for example. But the education issue hasn't really been prime in the spotlight with us this past year, but it was in the very beginning. It was one of the major ones.
A fourth area, which also in all these touch on things that really have tremendous demand within the society, and that this particular issue obviously has gotten a lot of attention in the past year, and that's health care. What has prompted your attention in this sphere?
Well, the inequity in health care, the accessibility of health care, those were the issues that we're primarily concerned about. Those people who are uninsured or even more underinsured. We have a number of underinsured people. And again, we organized a town meeting on the accessibility of health care. And we brought organizations, the health department, Anne Arundel Medical Center, representatives from Stanton Center, for example, to inform the people, make them aware of the good health resources that we really do have. We're very fortunate. We have wonderful healthcare facilities. Part of the problem is people don't know how to access them. Stanton Center, for example, is a phenomenal facility, but not everybody knows it's there and it's available to them. So our purpose is to get the word out there.
I guess one other issue that you've worked on is that of youth and recreation. And of course we have a new facility in Annapolis at the Roger Pitt Moyer Center, which provides excellent facilities for recreational purposes. But this continues to be an issue. I know when I had representatives from the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis on as my guest. If there was one consistent theme which ran through their presentations is getting youth active in things. And the biggest problem is these roaming youths who don't have enough to do and need some type of an outside area to be focused on. And so what has GAIN been doing with respect to this?
Well, we're thrilled to see the Recreation Center. In fact, we are using the Recreation Center for some of our activities in the next year. And GAIN, we had representatives who went to council meetings and the powers that be before the rec center was developed, promoting that. That was one of our big issues a number of years ago. And we also were very concerned about the youth violence. A few years ago, you will recall, we were having terrible times in our neighborhoods. And GAIN was one of the organizations that got together with very many others in trying to come up with a way to meet the needs of some of these neighborhoods. And we still support activities going on in some of the neighborhoods. Some of our GAIN representatives are working actively in these neighborhoods at the rec centers as mentors, as tutors, and as reading specialists, and we're still very concerned about that, and that's one of our prime issues.
We're going to take a break now, but when we return, I will talk with Dianne about the programs and activities that GAIN has on its agenda and will be sharing with the community. We're talking today with Dianne Cruz, who's a member of the Board of Directors and the former Secretary of the Greater Annapolis Interfaith Network, or GAIN, to use its acronym. Dianne, I know that GAIN has got a lot of different programs, activities, and events that it's sponsored in the past. I know it's got some that it's looking forward. Could you sort of review for our viewers some of the specific programs, some of the concrete activities and events that GAIN has sponsored here in the community, and give us some details about each one.
Mm-hmm. We sponsor an annual festival in October. We'll be coming up on the 5th one, and that festival asks faith communities and other nonprofit agency and service organizations in the community to come together to share their good works. And the premise for this was that there are lots of good things happening in our community, but not everybody knows about them. Plus, there are a lot of good activities going on, everybody doing their own individual things, that if we knew that each other was doing those things, we could maybe join together and be more effective. And so we decided we would bring together a festival of faith and good works. There was no proselytizing, that wasn't part of it. It was sharing the good things that these organizations are doing. And it's not only the churches and synagogues, it's also agencies like the Conflict Resolution Group, the Volunteer Center, the Health Department. We brought Annapolis Police Department in their youth program. They brought information. And what it is people have tables where they can promote what they're doing. And the public is invited. It's free. It's on a Sunday afternoon. We have refreshments that are donated to us by merchants in the community. It's a nice afternoon of finding out what are the good things that are happening in Annapolis.
Okay.
One of the other things that we've had a couple of interfaith cafes. This is a relatively new thing that we started last year, and we hope to keep it going this year. We are meeting at the rec center. There's a wonderful meeting room there, and we've had 30 to 40 participants. And it's basically a dialogue of people of different faiths coming together to discuss maybe a little profound issues. The first dialogue was based around sharing our core values of our individual faiths. We broke up in small groups around a table, and then we took not our core values and how do we interpret those into social action in the community. It was a very, very interesting discussion. once the small groups got finished, then we shared as a large group. We're going to have one of the next cafes is going to be sponsored by one of our faith community, the Baha'is, and we're going to get into some issues like good and evil, the afterlife, some of those little deeper issues, and share what each faith thinks about that and believes. So it should be interesting. We have coffee, we have little snacks. It's very casual, but it's a way for us to understand each other. Perhaps we won't be as intolerant as we are sometimes with people who are different than we are. And again, I think we hope that by getting to know each other and understanding each other, we can come together and do some good things for our community.
And the public is welcome. Public is
absolutely.
invited. The programs, there's no charge.
There's no charge.
So
Public's invited, and we try to get out as much publicity as we can. Basically, the publicity goes through the faith communities, but we do use the newspaper, and we do have our website. And I also I manage an information network. We have well over 200 people on this email information network. And so as events that GAIN is sponsoring, as well as events that our faith communities are sponsoring, I will send you an email blast to let you know. So hopefully I gather as many email addresses as I can at these various events, and then we keep you posted on what's going on.
I recently attended a conference in which the Reverend Eugene Sutton, who is the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland, delivered the keynote talk. And in his address, he differentiated between justice and giving to charity. And he made the comment that often people of faith mix the two and think that doing justice is the same as giving to charity. But he said actually they're of the same cloth, but he said they're really very, very different. And it sort of strikes me that the work that GAIN is involved with in terms of working on the social inequities in our community really get at that differentiation between doing work for justice and contributing to charity. Do you share that perspective?
Absolutely.
Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what you see as the differences between those two?
I think it goes back to the founding of GAIN. At that time and now, there are many service organizations who meet the individual immediate needs of people in our community. In other words, they're taking care of the symptoms of the problem, but we're not getting to the crux of the problem. We're not getting to the core problem, and that's really what GAIN has been trying to do. And that requires systemic change, not just the old adage of given a fish so you feed for a day. It's more trying to change the core problem, the systemic problem that's creating that need. That's really what we need to do, and we're struggling to do it. It's not easy. We're not giving up. We actually went through a period of time a few months ago where we reviewed, went to the communities who are members and said, you know, have we used is our usefulness gone? Can we close up shop, or what's going on? Are you willing to hang in there? Do we still have a lot of work to do? And we all agreed that absolutely there are still such core problems. We have to keep going. And I think that's the difference between charity, meeting an individual need, or actually getting to the crux of the problem. That's more the justice issue.
Absolutely.
We love Bishop Sutton in the Episcopal Church.
He made a very good presentation at this
Yes.
conference. He was the highlight of the conference.
We're blessed to have him.
Well, with that observation, what are the longer-term goals that GAIN has? I mean, looking down the road a few years, what kinds of things would you like to see GAIN become involved in? Obviously, you're dealing with issues here, as we talked about affordable housing and drug abuse and education and healthcare and youth and recreation. You know, these are all challenging issues that will probably be with us for some time. We can make progress in each of these areas, but it's a challenge. How do you see GAIN's future? Obviously, you've got many good programs going on here. You've got excellent outreach to the various faith-based organizations and denominations here in the community. But looking down the road, where can your influence be expanded on? What are your goals?
Well, one thing, we had a board meeting just a few weeks ago, and we are going to try to get the youth in our faith communities more involved, with the idea that if we get them young, get them involved and concerned, maybe it will make a difference for the long run. So we are going to try to get an interfaith youth network going. That's one thing. We have hopes for this interfaith cafe, that if we get together and be a little more intimate with what our beliefs are and how we interpret that and carry it on in our individual lives, especially in our community, that perhaps again we'll be a little more successful about hitting those core issues, rather than just putting a Band-Aid on the symptom.
Dianne, many of our viewers may be interested in learning more about GAIN. How can they get in touch with you? Do you have a phone number, an email address, a website that you can share with our viewers?
I can give you all that.
Absolutely. Please do.
We do have a website. It's a website in progress, and that is www.gainonline.org. We have an email address, which is gain21401@yahoo.com. And if you go on either of those, it will tell you who you can contact or how you can contact somebody. My telephone number is on the website, and I would be happy to talk to anybody about GAIN, or if you want to get on our information network, all you need to do is drop me a line via the website or the email or the telephone number, which is on the website.
Thank you for viewing our program today, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like more information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, please contact us at the information that appears on your screen. You can call us at 410-263-7998 or reach us by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov. And please check out our page at the City of Annapolis website. At the home page, click on the Boards and Commissions icon and simply scroll down the page to Human Relations Commission. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the seas like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."